Hi, I'm Marco from CYS. We've been around with CYS for 6 months now and have celebrated great sales successes and gained many fans. People have created great results and projects with CYS, but we also noticed people having a hard time here and there. It's important to understand the material in a new way. It's a new product. It's not PVC, it's not PU, it's TPU. We also learned a lot ourselves. We tried a lot, we wrapped the first vehicles, and were quickly convinced that this was a material that deserved the chance, but nevertheless, takes time to understand it properly. We've received messages about recurring problems that you had, where you were like, this isn't really working yet. We thought about what the causes are and how we could help you. In this film, we want to explain to you piece by piece what is important, what did we find out for ourselves, so that you enjoy a hassle-free experience with the product. The product is developed by car wrappers, and it is intended for car wrappers on the market. We are convinced that if you get involved in understanding and learning the product in a new way, you will have much more fun with it. You will be able to cause fewer complaints and win very happy customers with new projects. And now we wish you a lot of fun with the videos. In order to understand the new material, you have to internalize the difference between matte and glossy. The matte foils have an air channel structure in the adhesive and can be dry applied. The glossy foils have a smooth adhesive and require wet application. You'll need different tools for the two different types of foil. In the case of the matte foil, it's the plastic squeegee with a felt edge. With the glossy foil, it's the silicone squeegee that glides smoothly over the surface. The heating of the foil is done with the heat gun for the matte foil and with the hot steamer for the glossy foil. There is a reason that we recommend using the heat gun for the matte foils and the hot steamer for the glossy foils. The heat gun heats the foil a little more on the surface, while the steamer penetrates the material more evenly with its heat and makes the foil more supple. The matte foils feel a bit rubbery and can be stretched quite well. And the glossy foils seem a little stiffer. Therefore, it's better for the foils to make them a little more flexible with the steamer. Very important in both cases is the appliance pressure. The adhesive activates by pressure. You need a certain amount of heat, so you heat the foil to about 45 degrees Celsius. Then properly press into the glue so it achieves its initial adhesion and subsequently its final adhesion. Note that it is established with many wrappers that the foil is only lightly applied with a foiling glove. With the glove, you can bring the material nicely into position with a great feeling. But to really attach it to the coating, it needs the pressure of the squeegee, rather firmly than too lightly. The tension-free installation of TPU is very important. Make sure that you only stress the material as little as possible. It is important to understand that you don't work the material at a 90-degree angle up to a corner, in order to then model out the wrinkles that inevitably arise, and don't try to fix it with heat. This may work with PVC. PVC forgives it because the adhesive strength for the relatively thin material is sufficient to hold the foil where you somehow maneuvered it. This mistake, which is made with PVC, takes its toll on TPU. With TPU foil, the material must be worked away from the focal points where folds form to the side. This means that the material must be pre-modeled on the outside before you start to squeegee and heat it. Then, it is guaranteed that no material shrinks back or that no wrinkles form afterwards. The foilers who have been on the road for a while and are still familiar with calendared foils know that it is better to cut open the foil at certain corners to take out the tension than to torture the foil around the corner. It is also possible to pull film around a corner with TPU film, but it takes a lot of patience. You have to work your way into it. You need tact. We recommend if a corner is too sharp or the angle becomes too complicated, it is better to cut open the foil to make the so-called fan cut. The foil is easy to overlap. This usually takes place in a relatively hidden area and does not bother the customer. We have received a lot of feedback where it was evident that the material was not positioned correctly. It was not worked away from the neuralgic areas where wrinkles have formed, but rather compressed towards this area. We'll show you that here on the hood, where we show it with PVC, how not to do it, because then wrinkles can form, and how to do it right with TPU, where the material is worked away from the corner, away from the problem area. It is very important that we loosen the material before we cut it. This means that you work the material from one part onto the overlying part. Then, peel off the foil again briefly so that the tension comes out. You can heat it up again, then the material relaxes a bit more, and only then the material is cut. This way you can be certain not to cut any material that is stressed, that wants to go back at some point. The foiling of corrugations and troughs has always been a challenge. Of course, it doesn't get any easier with TPU. The material is twice as thick, so even more care is necessary. We recommend giving way to the material. That doesn't mean stretching the material over a trough and then pushing it in. The right way is to put the material stress-free into the hollow and then anchor it by activating the glue with squeegee pressure. Using the example of the door handle recess, we will show you how to incorporate matte and glossy foil. Stretch the matte foil over it, heat with the heat gun, press in slightly, then heat again and anchor correctly with squeegee pressure. Then, heat the whole thing up again up to 70 to 90 degrees Celsius, and only then cut the holes for the handles. With wet installation, you first have a lot of water, even in the trough. You take out the water so that the trough is almost dry. The area around the hollow, however, remains nice and wet. Then the foil is stretched over it as well, heated with the steamer so that the foil becomes nice and flexible, that you can gradually work it in. The more moisture there is under the foil, the more you need to be patient, because the adhesive strength is slowed down by the moisture. This means that the more water you get out at the beginning, the faster you can work out the hollow, and you will finish with the part. When cutting the foil around edges, where you don't cut on the paint with the scalpel but cut in the air, a shallow angle is an advantage. At a slightly steeper angle, you push the material and the foil, and the slightly rubbery consistency takes its toll in the material starting to wobble. If you cut very flat, you glide better through the material and get a very clean cut. Another challenge for wrappers can be door handles. We clamp down the removed door handle. We position and heat the foil. As you know, matte with the heat gun, glossy with the steamer. We pull the foil lengthwise over the handle with a little tension. The basic tension is important so that you have material left on the side for the lower area of the handle. Before you squeegee, loosen the material again on the side, reheat it, then work the material into the handle. With the glossy foil, it is important that we use the steamer to make the material more supple in depth. Otherwise, the procedure works as with the matte foil. It is very important that sufficient pressure is also exerted on the foil when gripping. This means that after you have modeled the foil around the handle, you take the squeegee, heat up the handle for a bit, and squeegee really vigorously, so that the glue is activated and the foil holds from the outset. The TPU film is relatively thick, so it does not allow you to coat every part from one piece. Sometimes you have to work with inserts. We recommend that you prepare the surface a little more before applying the insert on it. Wipe it over again with isopropanol water 50-50 to get better results in the initial adhesion. Just temper it through. By tempering, the hydrophobic property of the surface coating is reduced, and the adhesive can adhere even faster. But again, the squeegee pressure is crucial to anchor the film correctly on the film. When handling the glossy foil, notice that the surface is protected by a protective film. It must be removed after you cut the foil from the roll and put the piece aside. When you put the roll back in storage, make sure that you wind the roll up again with a strong roll tension, and only then store it away. If you don't, it may lead to tunnel formation because the protective film detaches from the foil surface and leaves marks on the surface. That's a pity, because the material is unusable afterwards. We are asked again and again, especially by the wrappers who are used to the fact that their foil all have air channel structures and can be processed dry. Why don't you make the foil in glossy also with the air channel structure? Basically, it was the case that we, as the manufacturer, first had glossy foil with an air channel structure when developing the foil. However, we have noticed that perfect results cannot be achieved with this prototype. The extreme gloss level of our foil carries everything to the top, causes traces to form, and affect the whole result. It might be easier to process glossy foil with an air channel, but we want the absolute premium result. And that's why the glossy film has to have the smooth adhesive, and we have to wet apply it. I hope you had a lot of fun watching the videos. You were able to absorb the information. Feel free to watch them a few more times, because it takes a certain amount of time to internalize it until you break away from old patterns and thus get into the new processing. Then you will have a lot of fun with it. And if you have any questions, please contact us. We will be happy to help you. By Rappers for Rappers is no joke. You're Marco from CYS.